In the Day 6 notes, we're going to talk about a trick that will help us determine whether something is factorable or not as we get into the Day 7 notes. The discriminant in factoring a quadratic trinomial. If the discriminant, which remember that was from our quadratic formula, b squared minus 4 times a times c, if that is a perfect square, and that's the important part, you really need to know that, if it's a perfect square, then the trinomial is going to be factorable. If it's not a perfect square, it's not going to be factorable. So in example 1, all we want to do is find the discriminant and then say whether the trinomial is factorable or not factorable. Then once we get to the Day 7 notes, then you'll be able to determine what it means to be factorable and how to do that factoring part. Today we're just going to start by recognizing if it is factorable or not. So let's take a look at number 1. We have x squared plus 4x minus 32. Remember, our a value comes from the number in front of x squared, so a is 1. B is a number in front of x, so b is 4. And c is our constant, which is negative 32. So to find the discriminant, we're doing b squared, so 4 squared, minus 4 times a times c. Plug that in your calculator for me so you can pause it if you need to and see what you get for your discriminant. If you plugged it into your calculator the right way, you should get a discriminant of 144. And we need to determine whether or not this number is a perfect square. There's a couple different ways to do that. One, you might just start recognizing your perfect squares. If you're unsure whether it's a perfect square or not, then you can go ahead on your calculator and just take the square root of 144. If you take the square root of 144 and it gives you an exact number, then it's perfect square. If it doesn't give you an exact number, you get some long decimal, then it is not a perfect square. So 144 is a perfect square. It comes from 12 times 12. So is this factorable? And you would say yes. And then again, tomorrow you'll learn how to do that. Number 2, we have 3x squared minus 2x minus 4. And we want to find the discriminant. We have a to be 3, b is negative 2, and c is negative 4. Remember, when you plug negatives in before you square them, they have to be in parentheses. So this negative 2 needs to be in parentheses before you square it, or you will get the wrong discriminant. Minus 4 times a times c. Again, plug that in your calculator. Make sure you got the right answer. If you plug it in correctly, you should get 52 as your discriminant. Then we need to determine, is 52 a perfect square? So take the square root of 52 on your calculator and see if you get a nice number or if you get a long decimal. Looking at your calculator, you should notice that you do get that long decimal, which means 52 is not a perfect square. So number 2, is it factorable? Your answer is no. We're going to do 2 more together and then you can try some on your own. Number 3, we have 2x squared minus 11x plus 5. So here a is 2, b is negative 11, and c is 5. Remembering that negative 11 must be in parentheses before you square it. Minus 4 times a times c. Plug that into your calculator. And if you do, you should see that you get a discriminant of 81. And is 81 a perfect square? And the answer to that, hopefully you recognize this one, is yes. It's just 9 times 9. So is this one factorable? You would say yes. And then we're going to do one more together. We'll do number 4. And in number 4, we have 3x squared plus 4x plus 6. So our a value is 3, b is 4, and c is 6. So we get b squared, 4 squared, minus 4 times a times c. And if we do 4 squared minus 4 times a times c, plug that into your calculator. You should see that you get a discriminant of negative 56. Negative 56 is not a perfect square. Any discriminant that's negative is never going to be factorable. So this negative 56, is this factorable? Your answer is no. Again, it doesn't matter if 56 is a perfect square or not because it's negative. Next, I'd like you to do a few on your own. So you can pause it now, unpause it when you're ready to check your answers. If you did letter A correctly, you should have gotten a discriminant of 289. And factorable, yes. Letter B, you should have gotten a discriminant of 0. Is that factorable? Yes. And letter C, you should have gotten a discriminant of 29. Is that factorable? And you should have said no. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, you're going to start on the notes for day 7.